Number 20190030, an ordinance to approve and authorize the execution of a professional service contract with Digital Engineering for providing all necessary professional engineering services for a hydrologic analysis of the Ormond Oaks area. Parish Project Number P180802. Mr. Fauché.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council members. We've been doing quite a bit of improvements. We did the Ormond cross ditches. We're attacking now the Ormond Oaks ditch. About 90% of all the conveyances that cross at the CN Railroad track make a 90-degree turn. We have already entered into conversations with Hill Heights Country Club for a new conveyance through that area. We've already met with the Ormond Nursing Home. They are right now preparing a building documents for expansion there. If their expansion does not encompass the area that we were asking for a drainage servitude, they are open for that also. We need to understand what type flows that we can get through this area and the most direct routes to get the rainwater into the Dunleith Canal rather than taking the routes that it's presently taking. This study is going to focus not only on the amounts of water, but also looking at some of the present drainage that's in place to make sure that is adequate with the right elevations, sizes, flows, so that we can get the water directly to the Ormond, the Destrehan 2 pump station. There's also an upgrade that will be coming to Destrehan 2 pump station that we have been working on. It is going to increase the sump area there and the entrance to the canal. So these are all pieces of the puzzle that we have been looking at since we started this 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. Item 20190015 is now open for public hearing. If there's anyone here who'd like to come up and speak on behalf of this item, please come up and do so now and state your name and address for the record. And you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Council. My name is Walter Pillier. I live on Duquesne Drive in Destrehan. I sweated flooding, by the way, on the 28th of December. I came here and I presented that. And I'm encouraged to see that there's a study being considered. However, I didn't understand the limited nature of the study, so I went and got a hold of not only the contract, but the RFP and the proposal. And it is indeed limited. Mr. Fauché explained some of the more salient features of it. And some I would say, you know, it's a no-brainer. Other stuff, you kind of wonder if it's really going to do any good. But one thing is for sure, this parish has paid for 3 major studies in the past, and 2 of those were very rigorous. One was the Master Drainage Plan back in 1994. The other one was Bert Klein-Peter in 1998. And then there was a Citizens Committee after the flooding in 1998. The problem with all of this, though, appears to be that there's a lot of interaction in the watershed, and just doing one thing or another thing is not necessarily going to affect the correct results. So what I think has to be done is to get more input, reflect on what's been done or what has been recommended in the past and not done, and take that into consideration. Get some input from the public, because there are some people who were there way back 20-something years ago, and there are people who've been studying these reports lately, I being one of them. And the event we had on the 28th, from the report information I got from the parish, we didn't even have a 10-year rain event. The reports show that whatever had been done was supposed to take care of flooding in our area in a 10-year event without any street flooding, and then not have homes flooded in a 100-year event. Yet this report depends on a 10-year event, right? That's the criteria, and GIS information from the parish, which, if I review that with Luis Martinez, is not yet complete. All this is good, but you wonder whether or not we're going to end up with the correct results. Maintenance we don't see a tremendous amount of wonderful maintenance on these canals that are causing us trouble. There's one major blockage, which is at Linwood Drive at the end. There's a land bridge there. The reports that we have assume that that was not there in the hydraulic studies, right? And yet it's still there with some really busted up culverts from the south side. These two pump stations, number 1 and 2, are supposed to act in concert with one another. And yet there was as much as a 3-foot difference, this is parish data, on the night of the 28th in the maximum rainfall event. So all I'm saying here is that there are potentially other fixes that you could go for. Low hanging fruit, fix the culverts, remove the land bridge. I understand you got to do maintenance on the canal, but on the other side, the levee on the other side of the Dunleith Canal, that's underway. But when's it going to be over? Because that was supposed to be removed, and the analysis that was done by Burke Kleinpeter made the assumption that that was a temporary land bridge and would be gone. So maybe put a trestle there.
Mr. P, I'm sorry, your time's up. We do have a motion and a second to extend your time. I do want to remind you, let's stay on topic. And these are some very technical discussions you're looking to have here. You know, we're always open to let you have some additional meetings with Public Works. So we do have a motion and a second to extend your time. Let's cast our votes.
See, things is moved by Paul. So everybody-
Where's the vote?
And that passes unanimously. You can continue.
Thank you very much. How much time do I now have?
Another 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I probably won't use that. So what I'm hoping is that a lot of the information and a lot of the input that the public can provide to this council or to the Public Works Department or even to the engineering firm that you hire would be of value. The thing that scares a lot of people is if we don't move quickly to do some of the maintenance that we see, we're going to reap the benefit of another flood coming in. And we've got to get on top of that, right? The study, we had a survey running around the neighborhood, all right? 31 people so far have responded. I think you guys may have seen it. 29 of the 31 respondents said yes on a study. So clearly I'm here to support that, but I'd like to see the study direct its energy toward the things that will get us an answer that works for the parish in long term for our area. People are really worn out with flooding. You know, I've got neighbors that right next door to me, 4 inches of water in his house, 2 people across the street. I sat there sweating it myself. It's just got to be fixed. And I spend a lot of energy trying to help get information that I can pass on. If you will accept my help, I've got lots of energy. So that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
PA. This is a public hearing for item number 20190030. If anyone would like to
He's
speak on
gotta
behalf
call you
of
up when
this,
it's council time.
if anyone would like to speak on behalf of this, please come up and do so now. Please do state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Tina Berto, 124 Ducaya Drive. And I don't know anything about drainage. I don't know anything about flow. But I can tell you, I moved in my house when I was 21 years old. I'm 61, still dealing with it. Still dealing with it. And I'd like it fixed. I mean, studies are great, and I know you need them, but we've had them. And I was awake that night. We had to pick furniture up, constantly watching it. I don't know if I can do it at 81. Okay, so I would appreciate you moving forward and solving this. Thank you.
This is a public hearing for 20190030. If anyone here would like to speak on behalf of this item, please come up and do so now.
Milton Alamo Hornville. And I just want to reiterate what the 2 previous speakers said. We do need to know where we got to start. But once we find out where we're going to start, we need to have a commitment that we're actually going to do something. I can produce you a study from 1995 that was done in Hornville. 7 major suggestions were made from a study. Very few of them were ever done. And the ones that were done, 25 years later, they've never been maintained. I wish you could see this. This is a public servitude with a drainage on the east side of River Park Drive. Tell me how that's going to drain. Over a year ago, Public Works came and dug this. They didn't have to do a study, they dug it. But they never maintained it since. So we need a commitment from somebody. We're going to spend a pile of people's money here to do a drainage issue. We need a commitment that after we get all the information, we're actually going to do something to fix it. I believe Mr. Fauché when he tells me he's committed to fixing our drainage problems. I got no reason to doubt that. I believe Mr. Cochran wants to do the right thing. But we got a problem here somewhere. Is it because they're overwhelmed? We've got a lot of infrastructure in this parish. Do we need to look at privatizing some of these projects on a per basis, per performance basis? So we have people that are dedicated to maintaining our drainage systems. When we do the study and we find out no one's peeked inside of that enclosed subsurface drainage in 20 years and we don't know what's in there because nobody ever checks. Just to talk about doing a study is not going to solve the problem until we get a commitment from somebody that we got a concrete plan in place to fix this. I, too, been living in Hornville with many of my neighbors since 1980. The rain we had about a month and a half ago now, we flooded in Hornville worse than ever. I came within an inch of getting water in my house. After living there since 1980, I've never seen that before. So the drainage is worse. We're going to open another subdivision quarter of a mile from us that's going to put the same water
Let's
in
stay
there.
on topic.
We're on
talking about
topic. The topic is the study is when we're going to fix our drainage issue.
Sir,
and quit
the
studying.
study is
Thank
in
you.
Ormond, so let's talk about that. Public hearing for 2019-0030 is now open. If there's anyone else who'd like to speak, please come up, do so now. State your name and address for the record, and you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Victor Buchilla, Burgharris Lane in Destrehan. I'm friends with Mr. Pillier, who got up and spoke. I also used to live in that neighborhood. My parents used to live there, and they unfortunately flooded in May of '95. We've also seen other people flood numerous times. I've recently been doing a lot of reading of the code. It's an interesting piece of work. I know Mr. Cochran at one meeting not too far back said it's not a perfect code and there's always room for improvement. Basically, that's what he said. I found a section in the code in the Home Rule Charter that I didn't know it was there, but it's y'all know it's there, I'm sure. It's Section E under Article 4. It's an emergency ordinance. Based on what I've heard about all these studies in the past, the 25 years recommending, or the study was based on the fact that Dunleith Bridge, it's not a bridge, the culverts were going to be removed. I suggest y'all go ahead forward with the study that these folks are asking for. I don't live in that neighborhood anymore. I'm on higher ground. But someone, maybe next meeting, introduce an emergency ordinance that allows you just go take that bridge out and then put a trestle bridge in place. You eliminate work for the future for Public Works having to go out there and remove wood, trash, basketballs, whatever it is. And I know that a trestle bridge will cost money, but you're going to, in the long run, you're going to open up that canal so that whatever's flowing can go. And both of the pumps that work in unison can get the water out of there. So anyway, Section E on emergency codes, it simply says to meet a public emergency affecting life, health, property, or public safety, the parish council, by a vote of 2/3 of its members, may adopt an emergency ordinance at the meeting at which it is introduced and may make it effective immediately. So just, the studies are in place, it's history. Or introduce an ordinance, vote on it. Get that obstacle out of the canal, and a lot of people who have flooded in the past, this will help them not flood in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing for 2019-0030 is still open. If there's anyone here who'd like to speak on behalf of this, please come up and do so now. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council discussion, Mr. Woodruff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I get the first gentleman up? I'd like to ask him a question. Yes, sir.
I'm Walter Pillier, by the way.
Okay. The culverts that are in there, this bridge, does it serve a purpose? I mean, does it actually do
Yes, it
anything?
does. The culverts are there for a purpose. They are to communicate water in the Dunleith Canal from the south toward the north, or from the north to the south, depending on how much capacity needs to be taken out of the canal from the Destrehan 1 or the Destrehan 2 pump station. Now, in the events we've mostly seen, in the load that you see from the south side, the flow is generally from the south. So if you look at the pictures that were in the information that I sent, the south side's damaged severely. There are 5 culverts. I can't tell you the exact size. Mr. Fauché might know offhand, but I can get that.
Okay.
One of them is entirely blocked. 3 of them are at least 50% impaired, and one of them is maybe 80% okay. All right, so what you're getting is the studies of the past assumed that none of that was in the way, so that you had clear flow through that canal. Destrehan 1 can back up Destrehan 2 and vice versa. You have enormous pump capacity in those 2 stations. If you have a differential head, if you have a differential in the sumps that we have readings for of as much as 3 feet, that's telling you something. There's a blockage. Number one was not laboring very hard, whereas number 2 was working its tail off and couldn't keep up.
So can this water be regulated from one canal to the other? Is there any way to
You
regulate?
don't need to.
Don't need to, okay.
The pumps control their own level with sump level,
So what-
or manual control, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just not following the problem all the way downstream to the pump station?
You'll have to go out there and take a look at it, or look at the information that's furnished to you. The land bridge is basically blocking the canal unless there were culverts, right? So the more blockage you have in the culverts, the less flow you get through that area.
But can we, if we take those culverts out?
If you took that out, we're golden. I mean, as far as the communication between those 2 pumps and the ability of the 2 pumps to pump more fluid out, and all of ours coming from the south has to get in that Dunleith Canal through the canals that Mr. Fauché was describing. So if we get those things fixed, heck, you want to really throw a real good one at you? Put more Jackson bores in, because that was suggested too, but that didn't all happen. So I'm just saying that there are a number of fixes. You know, I'm glad I've spent 6 weeks, 6 to 8 hours a day studying this stuff with the help of some people who have been involved in it for the last 25 years. So I'm not speaking idly, and I can back up everything I say with information. Some of it comes from the parish. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I
Okay, thank
appreciate
you.
Mr. Cochran?
Couple things. Mr. Fauché, could you elaborate on what's going on and why we're not using the old data and why we need new data to move forward?
The real issue with, well, I'm going to address one thing first. The land crossing that we have in the Dunleith Canal. The drainage studies that were done in the past are and were done, and their calculations show that bridge not being there. Can't explain why it was not removed in the past. We have every intentions of removing it. We're getting ready to go to bid on the final phase of the sheet pile for the Dunleith Canal. We're going to need the access to that bridge for a few months during that project, but we have every intentions of completely removing it. Outside of us needing it for that last phase, the sheet piles are already up to the Linwood Bridge, so we don't need it past this coming phase. So we in our strategy, and what I've already spoken to Mr. Cochran about, is we are going to remove that bridge. Just putting jack and bores through the railroad track, it may get more water initially through the tracks, but when you have a rain like we had on the 28th, which between midnight and 2:45 a.m., we saw between 5 and 7.5 inches of rain, depending on exactly the area you in. Every one of those conveyances makes a 90-degree turn when it crosses through the tracks. While it may help alleviate some, that water is going to back up extremely quickly. What we need to do is find the most direct route to get the most water directly into the Dunleith Canal. And if I had Google Earth up, I could literally show you all the 90-degree turns that these conveyances make. Not only right as it crosses the railroad track, but it passes in front of Hill Heights. It makes another 90-degree turn there. It turns north with another 90-degree turn. It goes to the Ormond Nursing Home, where it makes a 160-degree turn back towards the southeast until it makes another 90-degree turn into the Dunleith Canal. That's why the water backs up so much right there by the Ormond Nursing Home and Plantation Estates and Plantation Road by the Jerusalem Temple, is because that's where all those 90-degree turns are accumulating. What we need to do is get a direct route out, which is why we went and made a pitch to Hill Heights Country Club in order to let us put a subsurface drainage system through there. I don't know what the size of that drainage needs to be. Not even sure if it's going to be one set of culverts or two sets or three sets of culverts through there, but I need to know what the conveyance needs to be so that I have some idea to work with Hill Heights on the actual area that we need. But it all started with the Ormond cross ditches. Now the improvements are coming to that Ormond ditch, which is between Ormond Subdivision and Ormond Oaks. We can't get in there to clean that. When we do, it takes us anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. But now with the Ormond ditches subsurfaced, we can actually run our equipment over those ditches to get to Ormond Oaks. One of the ideas we had and that we're exploring right now is the concrete lining of the Ormond Oaks ditch. That will reduce friction, that will reduce all maintenance activities. We are actually looking to make the bottom part of the Ormond ditch just big enough for a small bobcat so that we could start in the front end and actually just run the bobcat through the bottom of it. And at each one of the Ormond cross ditches, we can have a truck where we'll actually be able to take all of the branches and muck and everything right out at the cross ditches and load in a truck and roll it right out. So all of these pieces that we have been working on in the last 2.5 years are all accumulating or culminating with this study to understand how to get the water in the most direct route to Destrehan number 2. At Destrehan number 2, we still have the same issue. The study from 1995 says that in a 10-year rain event, it's a possibility for that canal to overflow. Well, if we can get enough pumping capacity there in a reservoir area at Destrehan number 2, we have the pump capacity to get the water out. That was one of the things I had communicated to Mr. Pillier, is that pumping capacity is not our issue. It is strictly conveyance. But when you have between 5 and 7 inches of rain in a little less or a little more than 2.5 hours, we have natural barriers in place, and the railroad track is one of them. The other second railroad track is another one. Airline Highway is another issue that we have, and we have the conveyances coming through Airline Highway, and we have pumping capacities on the other side of Airline Highway that have the ability with Cross Bayou and Bayou Trepanier to move a tremendous amount of water. I've seen all of the pumps kick on at Cross Bayou and suck that canal down a foot in about 40 minutes. So pumping capacity is there, but we have just neglected to address conveyance and through our natural barriers, which are the railroads and our roadways.
Ms. Benedetto?
Thank you. Mr. Fauché, I appreciate all of your efforts. I know when this storm came, y'all were on top of it, even went out to residents that have flooded and stuff like that. But as you can see, and as we have experienced over the last couple of weeks since it happened, our residents are now in a panic for the next big rain. And I appreciate this coming forward, but is there anything we can say to the residents to help them feel better about the next big rain event that comes up quickly? Is there anything we can do quickly or initiate that will help them should this come up again
Ms.
in the next
Benedetto,
week or two?
we had Public Works out.
Yep.
We were working with EOC. EOC said the storm was going to get here at 6. We didn't allow the employees to go home. We kept our full crews out on both sides of the river until 6:30 when EOC called us and told us that it was probably going to be 10:30, 11 o'clock before the rain would come because the storm had stalled. We got the first phone calls. I got a phone call from a resident in Kelowna at about 10:15, about 10:30. That Kelowna was getting a tremendous amount of rain. Called EOC. They said they had already gotten 3 inches in months. We already had crews out in Hornville in months. I called Mr. Cochran. We met at the Public Works office. When we went to Norco, Mr. Cochran got out the car, walked over to Engineers Canal, unlocked the gate, and we went in to make sure that the pumps were already running. There wasn't even water in the street or on the ground. We came back to the Public Works office. We started calling out some more personnel. When we left there at 11:30 to go back to Norco, the water in the road on River Road was at my door height on River Road. You know, we were prepared. We had the canals pumped down. We had been pumping most of the day. Public Works had been out all day. By 1 a.m., we had the entire Public Works out. We had recreation out. We had wastewater out. Government buildings had people out. To say that we weren't prepared is not accurate. To say that we could have stopped this in our current situation, I can't say that we can. If we can get this direct route through the property at Hill Heights and the Ormond Nursing Home, this is going to be an extra conveyance that we never had. Will that stop the next rain? You know, it used to be we got afternoon showers. Now we get 3 inches in an afternoon shower. Used to be we had overnight rains. Now we at Scheck-Snyder Pump Station, New Sarpy Pump Station, we logged 7.5 inches of rain in a little over 2.5 hours. I can't answer for those.
Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Fauché, you stated the 2 major blockages are the railroad tracks. Do we have anything in the works toward putting jack and bores and adding some culverts under those tracks at this time?
We have a number of projects that we've been communicating with CN and also KCS. KCS allowed us to dig an entirely new canal along the railroad track in Norco. CN, they have been very slow to answer us. There's a set of 48-inch culverts we wanted to put along the CN railroad track, which we did on the north side, but that was all next to our playgrounds. But on the south side, we wanted to put about 1,300 feet of 48-inch culverts starting at about Scheck-Snyder, the end of Scheck-Snyder, all the way to River Point. That would not only collect and hold water, but it would actually get it through the jack and bores quicker. On the other side of Ormond Boulevard, I don't know that conveyances through the railroad track are the answer. I'm not saying we don't need more jack and bores, but every jack and bore that we have that crosses the track makes a 90-degree turn. Okay? The problem is getting water directly through the tracks and where it needs to go. Right now, adding jack and bores and making a 90-degree turn to a system that already has, I would say, no less than 6 90-degree turns before it gets to Dunleith Canal is not going to fix the problem. We need more direct routes, and that's what we're exploring right now. And if I can get more direct routes, I need to know the volume and the amount of water that I need to get through those so that I can look at and procure servitudes. I'll tell you right now, I am not opposed to spending money to buy property or to buy servitudes, and I have presented that to you. I have looked for solutions that are out of the box that we have not explored in the past. The subsurfacing of the Ormond cross ditches so that we can get to the Ormond Oaks ditch. I mean, that's been proposed in the past, but nobody's done it. People are afraid, and I'm going to say this, and some of you are going to know exactly what I'm saying. Some of the past administrations have been afraid to invest money in the Ormond area because people perceive that the people in Ormond get everything. Well, this administration is not only attacking the drainage there, but attacking it in every neighborhood in St. Charles Parish and across the board. And we're doing projects in-house that we have never done before. Not only in areas, but in size and magnitude. The box culverts that we've been installing, like the ones we put on Hackberry, I mean, I will defend the work that we're doing in public works against any administration. And I'm talking about in-house. And the small amount of engineering contracts that we have given out. Because we have tried to avoid that, because that is an extra expense. If I could raise the $150,000 that we are pigeonholed into our projects in doing, there's even more work that we could do and save the parish money. But I can't. And until that legislation gets changed, and I will say that past administrations, at least they did attack that and have it raised from 75 to 150, which has benefited me tremendously.
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran?
It's benefited the people of St. Charles Parish tremendously.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to talk about what you asked. Our Public Works Department is very dedicated, as well our Recreation Department. All our departments were on hand that night, and we'll continue to do so. We're making adjustments on the call-outs on how we're doing things. I think it's going to make it better going into the neighborhoods. But let me assure you, drainage is our #1 priority next to hurricane protection. We're doing stuff in Ormond. We're doing stuff in Muntz. We're doing stuff in Hornville. We're doing stuff across this parish, and we're going to continue to do so. We had data in the Muntz area from 2 different engineers. And I'm going to go back to when that gas line come through. They had an engineer tell us to go a different way with drainage. So how do you compute one going one way, one going the other? So we have a drainage analysis going on in Muntz that we're going to implement as soon as it gets done. These are some necessary evils to get moving in the right direction. And the lady that's been back there 40 years, I flooded twice where I lived. I took this very personally. I went out there. I don't believe I met with you, but I met with the gentleman sitting in the front right here. And I told Snooky, let's get it done, let's get it moving. And this is the way he decided to go, and I support him 100%, and I think it's going to really expedite things, getting things done. Because when we have this engineering study, then we can contract things out, and it will move a lot quicker. So thank y'all very much.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Snooky, you mentioned a few things. You mentioned hill heights and trying to come up with some type of agreement to get a more direct path to get the water out. You have any idea off the top of your head when the first 90 starts, the distance from that first 90 as it zigzags to get to 2 pumps that have the pumping capacity, capable of pumping, but one was continuously pumping and the backup couldn't pump. And I know I've seen us deploy hydraulic pumps sometimes, whether or not they take suction from a sump or the distance where they hard pipe to force the water to get where we're trying to get it quicker because gravity is not allowing it because you got, every time it hits a corner, it slows down, not counting the debris that's slowing it down. So is that not possible in instances like this? But like the hydraulic would be like a booster. It would boost, was gravity is taking too long to get to the main pumps.
We actually had Evans Graves look at putting a pump at the trestle by Hill Heights. The issue with that is we still have all the 90-degree turns, so putting a pump there, while it gives us a small amount of benefit, if in a rain event like this, that water's going to quickly back up, it's got nowhere to go. The 90-degree turn, when you cross the trestle at Hill Heights, is about 50 foot away from the railroad track. The 90-degree turn where the end of Ducaille crosses the railroad track is about, it's probably still in the railroad right-of-way. I mean, at the bottom of the track is where the ditch is, and when it comes through the tracks, it makes a 90-degree turn right there. There's actually a concrete wall of riprap that was built there because it was actually coming through the railroad track and washing away underneath the that parking lot for I'm not sure what it is, if it's a set of apartments or office buildings or what, that's right there on the other side. The 90 degrees are right at the track, and they just continue as we go because we have historically followed property lines, servitudes, historical servitudes through this area. We need direct routes, and if we can't get a direct route, then you can put jack and bores, you can put small pumping stations, but as soon as it hits all these 90 degrees and the water starts building up, then it's just a simple flow of hydraulics.
I just have one, I guess, in addition to that, my initial question. As we move forward with 2019-0030, this particular one, but hopefully we not running into, like we getting someone to go out and do a study, and like many other areas, my district, we run into people who have land that don't want to work in good faith with us. We want to acquire servitude right away. And I know it's an ugly word when you talk about expropriating property, but hopefully once this study is done and we come up with a plan and we have the money to move forward, we're not having a study, but we're not seeing any results for the money that was spent to put that in place.
Well, that's why we've already been to Hill Heights and to Ormond Nursing Home. That is the route that we're looking for. I need to understand the size of flow, the volume that needs to go through there. But Hill Heights has already agreed. Ormond Nursing Home, unfortunately, we are waiting for them to finish their design work. Like we told them, it's going to be subsurface. You can still utilize the green space on the top of the culverts. You just can't build on top of it. So they understand that. So we're trying to understand what the footprint of their new building or their expansion looks like so that we can go ahead and move forward with them. So we've already approached the property owners. We already have a positive from one, and I guess as close a positive as we can get to Ormond Nursing Home. I'm still exploring other property, but right now that looks like a go. So I need to understand what I can put through there and how to tie that into the Dunleith Canal. We already have and have been working on, you approved the contract with ELOS last year. ELOS is looking at the wetland and the permitting that we may need for that sump for Destrehan number 2. They have already given us a preliminary feedback on that. The size of the Dunleith Canal leading up to number 2 also needs to be expanded. That was one of the things that was also talked about in the Burke-Klein-Peters study from 1998. Is that a 100-year storm event? I mean, yes, a 100-year storm event that it would overflow the banks of the Dunleith Canal. So bringing it to an additional width along with taking out that entire area, and we're looking at almost tripling the size of the sump area for Destrehan number 2. Again, we have two 72-inch pumps there with a series of 48s and 54s. Pumping capacity is not the problem there. It's not. It's flow, getting the water there, conveyance.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché.
Any other council discussion? All right. Seeing none, please cast your votes. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.